Hello, this is Steve Olson. I'm the training manager at Mesa. In this video, I'd like to take a look at one of my favorite examples from my Inventor class, which takes a look at the power of reordering the features in the browser in Inventor, and also takes a look at the end of part. So in this example, what I have is just a simple little part that the design intent of this piece is to mirror this upper arm to the lower part of the piece and then mirror that all over to the right hand side, so we get a little suspension bar here for a piece. So what I want to do first is I want to start off by setting up my mirror. So I'm going to go to my mirror command, and I need to grab the features, which I'm just going to grab the arm, I'm going to grab the hole, and I'm going to grab this little feature right here. Now I'm going to set my mirror plane as being the underside of this piece. Say OK, and you'll notice that the cutout in this arm doesn't go the whole way through. So this is a point where I usually talk about design intent and making sure that you have all the right extent features or extent options on your features. So in this case here, this is extrusion 3. If I look at the feature there to see what kind of options that I set up, did I really set up all? And I did. And the reason it doesn't go through the part the entire way right now is because that at the time that extrusion is cut, it does go through everything. It's just that at this point in time, we have added material beyond that or in the way of that feature, and it doesn't know that it should cut through all of that. So one thing I could do is just reorder my features to so that extrusion 3 happens after the mirror, and that way it'll cut through everything. So it's just a very simple going over to my browser, left clicking on extrusion 3 and dragging it, seeing that black insertion line show up after mirror 3, letting go, and now you'll see that it does cut the whole way through everything. So by reordering my feature, I was able to make a slight design change here. So now, the next part I want to do is I want to mirror both of these arms over to their side. So I'm going to use my mirror command again, basically select my features. Again, I'm going to grab them out of the browser this time, just as something else to do, a different way of doing it. I'm not going to include extrusion 3. I'm going to kind of do everything else, use my mirror plane here, and grab one of my origin planes that will allow me to mirror to the side I want to go to. So I'll say OK to that, and you'll see that extrusion 3 kind of gets filled in again, and the reason is the shape of this extrusion 1, once it gets mirrored over, fills in that area. Not to worry, I can grab extrusion 3, make sure it's the last feature in my list, and it will now extrude through everything. So the next thing I want to take a look at is maybe I want to add a little extrusion between these arms for support, and I want it on both sides. So I could very easily create a new extrusion and then mirror it, or do it as two separate extrusions. But to just show the power of the end of part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my end of part up between mirror 3 and mirror 4. So basically I have just half of my piece. What happens when I add a new feature now is it doesn't happen at the end of my browser. It will actually happen right before my end of part marker. So just bear with me here. I'm going to create a simple little extrusion. Constrain it here quickly. So now I've got my sketch. I'll extrude that shape between my arms. I have to make sure it's a joining operation. Sometimes when I go to the back side of a sketch like that, it'll try to make it a cut, but I'm going to make it a join. So now, if I bring my end of part marker down to the bottom of my tree, I still have that extrusion on the one side, but I want to mirror it over to the other side. So again, I could mirror that feature as a separate feature, or since I already have a feature that it mirrors from my left to my right, all I have to do is edit that feature, that mirror feature, and add this extrusion as another feature to be included in that. So one other kind of interesting thing about the end of part marker is I can use it to um, do a wide variety of operations. Lots of times if I'm asked to look at somebody's part and I kind of help them figure out an issue that they might be having, a very common thing I do is I'll take my end of part marker to the top of the tree and just bring it down feature by feature so I could see how the part is built. So if you're ever working on somebody else's model and you need to see how something's done, um, then definitely do this. And also, if you ever edit a feature high on the tree and it ends up breaking a bunch of things lower in the tree, sometimes it's a good idea to bring that end of part marker up so it's the last feature in the list, make your adjustments, and then bring each feature in one by one. Lots of times you'll find that you get fewer errors because you're going to correct one dependency, whereas if you do the entire tree, if the entire tree is active at that moment, you have to deal with all the grandchildren dependencies, for lack of a better term, whenever you do, whenever things fail. Just one other kind of interesting thing about the end of part marker. Let me just kind of illustrate this real quick. So if I take my end of part marker to the top of my tree, which I can drag it, or I can right click on it and say move to the top. So now I have nothing in my window here. Everything is kind of suppressed. Let me do a quick save as to illustrate something for you. I'm going to call this EOP, save that, and then if I bring my end of part marker down to the bottom again, do a save as, call it all features, or just call it all. What I want to show you here is if I look at the file size of these pieces, I'm going to drag my file size column over, you'll notice that my file that has my end of part at the bottom, or I'm sorry, at the top of my list, is slightly smaller than the other ones. And the idea here is that by having the end of part marker to the top of your browser tree, it eliminates all the graphic information in the file about those features. So a common thing I recommend to folks is if you have a file that's maybe too big to send via email because the file size, try moving your end of part marker to the top. Lots of times you might be able to kind of sneak it in underneath a filter that doesn't allow extensions of certain sizes because the file size is a lot smaller then. One thing that I always do tell people though is please let the receiver know that you've got the end of part marker to the top. I've actually, my first experience with the end of part was we had somebody that sent us a file that had the end of part marker at the top, and an engineer and I looked at the model for a good couple of minutes trying to figure out what's going on, and then all of a sudden it hit me, oh, end of part marker's at the top. We drug it down and everything was good. But it definitely confused us for his first couple minutes. So I want to thank you for watching this video. Please feel free to send comments and questions to me. I'm always looking to hear back from people that are watching these videos. Thank you and have a good day.